Dr. Jake Miller wiped his sweaty palms on his lab coat for the third time in 5 minutes. He stood in the main meeting room of Harmony Point, a huge space station that floated between Earth and the outer colonies. Today was the biggest day of his life. The Felixians were coming. Jake was a scientist who studied alien life forms. He had spent years reading about different alien species, but he had never met one face to face. The Felixians were cat-like aliens who lived far away in the B galaxy. They were known for being strong fighters and very proud. This was the first time they wanted to talk to humans. "Stay calm, Miller," said Captain Lisa Hayes as she walked up to him. She was the leader of their ship, the Aurora's Edge. They're just aliens. Big, scary cat aliens with claws and attitude problems. Jake laughed nervously. "That's not helping, Captain." The meeting room was filled with people from Earth's government and military. Everyone wore their best uniforms. Jake felt out of place in his simple lab coat, but he was here because he knew more about alien biology than anyone else on the ship. A loud sound came from the docking bay. The Felixian ship had arrived. "Here we go," whispered Peter Carson, the main diplomat. He straightened his tie and walked toward the entrance. "Remember, everyone, be polite. Don't make any sudden moves. And whatever you do, don't touch them without permission." The doors opened with a soft whoosh. 3 tall figures walked in, and Jake's mouth fell open. The Felixians looked like giant humanoid cats. They had fur that ranged from golden brown to deep black. Their eyes were bright yellow or green. They wore fancy armor that looked both beautiful and deadly. The leader was a massive male with dark stripes on his silver fur. "I am Lord Commander Thane-Kar," the leader said in perfect English, though his voice sounded like a low growl. "I speak for the Felixian Empire." Peter stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Welcome to Harmony Point, Lord Commander. I am Peter Carson, representing Earth's government. We are honored by your visit." The Felixians looked around the room with sharp eyes. Jake felt like they were studying every human as if they were planning something. One of the Felixian guards, a female with bright orange fur, whispered something to their leader. Thane-Kar nodded. "We will begin talks tomorrow," Thane-Kar said. "Today, we observe. We learn about humans." The meeting became more relaxed. Humans and Felixians walked around the room, talking in small groups. Jake watched from the side, too nervous to join any conversation. He was supposed to be here to answer questions about human biology, but nobody was asking him anything. That's when he heard it. A soft mewing sound coming from behind some equipment near the wall. Jake looked around, but nobody else seemed to notice. The sound came again, sadder this time. Jake quietly walked over to investigate. Behind a large computer terminal, he saw a small, furry creature about the size of a house cat. It had beautiful silver fur and bright golden eyes. The creature looked hurt and scared. "Hey there, little guy," Jake said softly, getting down on his knees. "Are you okay?" The creature backed away and made a small hissing sound. Jake could see it was shaking. "It's okay," Jake whispered. "I won't hurt you. You must have gotten lost from the Felixian ship." Jake had always been good with animals. Back on Earth, he had rescued many stray cats and dogs. This little alien cat didn't look much different from Earth cats, except for its silver fur and larger eyes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a protein bar. He broke off a small piece and held it out. "Are you hungry?" The creature sniffed the air and slowly crept closer. It took the food gently from Jake's hand and ate it quickly. Then it looked up at him with those big golden eyes. "There you go," Jake said with a smile. "You're just scared, aren't you? Being around all these big, scary aliens and humans." The creature moved closer and rubbed against Jake's hand. Without thinking, Jake gently scratched behind its ears, just like he would with any cat. The creature immediately started purring, a deep rumbling sound that felt nice. "You like that, don't you?" Jake continued scratching gently. "You're really soft. I bet you're somebody's pet who got scared and ran away." The purring got louder. The creature closed its eyes and leaned into Jake's touch. For a moment, Jake forgot all about the important meeting happening behind him. He was just a man being kind to a scared animal. Then something strange happened. The creature's purring suddenly stopped. Its eyes snapped open and stared directly at Jake. There was something different in those eyes now, something very intelligent. "Uh-oh," Jake said quietly. The air around the small creature began to shimmer like heat waves. Jake blinked and rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things. But the shimmering got stronger. The creature began to grow. Jake scrambled backward as the small cat-like being expanded rapidly. Its silver fur became brighter. Its muscles grew larger. Its cute little paws turned into hands with sharp claws. In seconds, what had been a house cat-sized creature was now a 7-foot-tall humanoid feline. The transformed being was clearly female, with a powerful build and fierce golden eyes. She wore a simple but elegant outfit that seemed to appear with her transformation. Her silver fur was marked with darker stripes, and she was easily the most beautiful and terrifying thing Jake had ever seen. She looked down at Jake, who was still sitting on the floor with his mouth hanging open. "You," she said in a voice that was both musical and dangerous. "You dare to claim me?" "Claim you?" Jake squeaked. "I don't understand. I was just being nice to a cat." The female Phylixian's eyes narrowed. "A cat? A cat?" Her voice rose to almost a roar. Behind them, the meeting room suddenly went quiet. Jake could hear footsteps running toward them. "You scratched my ears," she continued, her voice getting lower and more dangerous. "Do you know what that means, little human?" Before Jake could answer, she pounced. In one smooth motion, she tackled him to the ground and pinned him there with her hands on his shoulders. Jake found himself staring up at her face, which was only inches from his. She hissed, showing sharp white teeth. Then, unexpectedly, she started purring again. "You have claimed me," she said, her voice now almost a whisper. "So now you belonging to me." "Zara Lynn!" Lord Commander Thanekar's voice boomed across the room. "What is the meaning of this?" The female Phylixian, apparently named Zara Lynn, didn't move from on top of Jake. She kept staring into his eyes while continuing to purr. "Father," she said without looking away from Jake, "this human has initiated a claim bond." Jake heard gasps from the humans and angry growls from the other Phylixians. Feet ran across the floor. He heard the sound of weapons being drawn. "Nobody move!" Captain Hayes shouted. "Everyone stay calm!" But Jake couldn't focus on anything except the alien woman pinning him down. She smelled like cinnamon and starlight. Her golden eyes seemed to see right through him, and despite the fact that she had just tackled him in front of two different species governments, she was still purring. "I don't understand what's happening," Jake managed to say. Zara Lynn tilted her head, studying him. "You really don't know, do you, little human?" She leaned closer, and Jake could feel her breath on his face. "You have just challenged me to become your mate. In my culture, this is very serious business. Mate? Jake's voice cracked. I was just scratching a cat. I am Princess Zara Lynn, daughter of Lord Commander Thane-Kar, warrior of the First Pride, defender of the Phylixian Empire, she said proudly. And you, little human, have just made the biggest mistake of your life. She paused, then added with what might have been amusement in her voice, or perhaps the luckiest accident in the galaxy. We shall see. Jake looked around desperately. Humans and Phylixians surrounded them, all looking shocked and worried. Some had weapons drawn, others looked like they might faint. And there he was, pinned to the floor by an alien princess who was apparently now his responsibility because he had scratched her ears. This is not how I plan to spend my Tuesday, Jake said weakly. Princess Zara Lynn threw back her head and laughed, a sound like silver bells mixed with a lion's roar. She was still laughing when the first security alarm started going off. Princess Zara Lynn was still sitting on top of Jake when Captain Hayes arrived with a team of security guards. The Phylixians had also moved closer, forming a protective circle around their princess. Everyone looked ready for a fight. Princess, please release our scientist, Captain Hayes said carefully. She kept her hands visible and spoke in a calm voice. I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Zara Lynn replied, not moving from Jake's chest. This human has claimed me according to the old ways. The scratch of bonding has been given. Jake tried to sit up, but Zara Lynn pressed him back down easily. She was much stronger than she looked. Could someone please explain what's happening? I just petted what I thought was a lost cat. Lord Commander Thane-Kar stepped forward. His armor made clicking sounds as he moved. Human Captain, your scientist has created a serious situation. In our culture, scratching behind the ears is not a simple gesture of kindness. It is a sacred act between mates or family members. Peter. Carson, the diplomat, looked like he wanted to disappear. He pulled out a small tablet and started typing quickly. Lord Commander, surely we can work this out. Dr. Miller had no knowledge of your customs. This was clearly an accident. Accident or not, Thane-Kar growled, the claim bond has been initiated. According to our laws, it must be resolved properly, or it will bring dishonor to both our peoples. Jake finally managed to speak up from under Zara Lynn. What exactly is a claim bond? Zara Lynn looked down at him with those bright golden eyes. It means you have challenged me to become your mate, little human. You must prove you are worthy through 3 trials. If you refuse the trials, it is a great insult that could mean war between our species. War! Jake's voice went higher. Over scratching ears? If you accept the trials and fail, Zara Lynn continued, you become my property. You will serve me for the rest of your life. And if I succeed? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Zara Lynn smiled, showing her sharp teeth. Then I become your mate, and our peoples will be joined through our bond. The room erupted in worried voices. Humans talked quickly to each other while the Phylixians made various growling and purring sounds. Captain Hayes held up her hand for quiet. Dr. Miller, you don't have to do this. We can find another way to resolve this situation. But Lord Commander, Thane-Kar shook his massive head. I am afraid not, human captain. The claim bond is sacred law. It cannot be ignored. However, he paused and looked at his daughter. I should tell you more about Princess Zara Lynn before your scientist decides. Zara Lynn's ears flattened against her head. Father, you don't need to. My daughter is not an ordinary Phylixian, Thane-Kar interrupted. She is our greatest warrior. She has never been defeated in combat. She has turned down every suitor for 10 years. Among our people, she is known as the Untouchable, because no male has ever proven worthy of her. Jake felt his stomach drop. So you're saying she's impossible to beat? I'm saying she's the strongest, smartest, and most skilled fighter in our empire, Thanakar replied. And she has very high standards. Zara Lynn finally got off Jake and helped him stand up. She was even taller than he thought, and her presence was intimidating. But Jake noticed something in her eyes that looked almost curious. "Tell me, human," she said. "What is your name, and what do you do?" "Jake Miller," he answered, brushing dust off his lab coat. "I'm a scientist. I study alien life forms and biology." "A scientist." Zara Lynn walked in a circle around him, like a predator studying prey. Not a warrior, not a diplomat, a scientist who studies life. She seemed to be thinking about something. "Interesting." "Princess," Peter Carson stepped forward nervously. "Perhaps we could postpone this decision until—" "No," Zara Lynn said, firmly. "The claim bond must be answered quickly, or it becomes void. You have 1 hour to decide, Jake Miller." Lord Commander Thanakar nodded. "If you refuse, we will consider it an insult, but we will not start a war. However, it will damage relations between our peoples for many years." Jake looked around the room. Everyone was staring at him. The future of human-Felixian relations apparently depended on his decision. He thought about his quiet life studying alien plants and small creatures. This was definitely not in his job description. "What are the 3 trials?" he asked. "Combat, prowess, intellectual merit, and emotional bonding," Zara Lynn answered. "Each trial tests a different aspect of worthiness." "Combat?" Jake squeaked. "I've never been in a real fight in my life." "Then you will likely fail quickly," Zara Lynn said, but she didn't sound mean about it. "However, the trials are not always about physical strength. They test the whole person." Captain Hayes pulled Jake aside. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "We can handle the diplomatic fallout." Jake looked back at Princess Zara Lynn, who was now talking quietly with her father. Despite her threats and intimidating presence, there was something about her that intrigued him. Maybe it was the way she had purred when he scratched her ears. Maybe it was the intelligence he saw in her golden eyes. Or maybe it was the fact that she seemed just as surprised by this situation as he was. "Can I ask you something?" Jake called out to her. She turned to face him. "Yes? Why were you in that small form, hiding behind the equipment?" For the first time since she had transformed, Zara Lynn looked uncertain. I was observing. It is something I do. In my smaller form, I can watch and learn without being noticed." "You were shy," Jake said with sudden understanding. "You wanted to see what humans were like, but you were nervous about the formal meeting." Zara Lynn's ears flattened again. "I am not shy. I am a warrior. Even warriors can be curious about new things," Jake said gently. "I was hiding behind equipment, too, in my own way. I was too nervous to talk to anyone." Something changed in Zara Lynn's expression. She tilted her head and studied him with new interest. "You were kind to me when you thought I was just a small, scared creature," she said slowly. "You offered me food and comfort. You did not know I was a princess or a warrior. You simply saw a being that needed help." "That's what anyone should do," Jake replied. "No," Zara Lynn said softly. "That is what a good person does. many beings, would have ignored a scared creature. You stopped your important day to help something small and helpless. Lord Commander Thane-Kar was watching this exchange with great interest. "Daughter, what are you thinking?" "I am thinking," Zara Lynn said, "that this human is not what I expected." She looked directly at Jake. "I have had many suitors over the years. Warriors, princes, generals. All of them wanted to claim me because of my status or my father's power. None of them would have stopped to help a frightened animal." Jake felt his face turn red. "I just did what felt right." "Exactly," Zara Lynn said with what might have been approval. "You did what felt right, not what would benefit you." She walked closer to him. "Jake Miller, I will give you a choice that I have never given any suitor before. You may walk away from this claim bond with no dishonor to either of our peoples. I will tell my father that the bond was broken through mutual agreement." Everyone in the room held their breath. "But," she continued, "if you choose to accept the trials, I want you to know that I will not make them easy for you. I will test you completely, and if you fail, you will belong to me." Jake thought about his quiet life back on Earth, his laboratory, his books, his routine. Then he looked at this incredible alien princess who had just offered him an honorable way out of an impossible situation. "Why would you give me that choice?" he asked. Zara Lynn was quiet for a moment. "Because you gave me kindness when I was small and scared. Because you treated me gently when you had no reason to. And because—" she paused, "because I am curious to see what kind of trials a human scientist might face." Jake made his decision. "I accept the trials," he said. The room exploded in noise again, but Jake only heard Zara Lynn's response. "Then we begin tomorrow," she said, and for the first time since she had tackled him, she was smiling. "I hope you are ready, Jake Miller. You have just agreed to face the untouchable." Lord Commander Thane-Kar stepped forward. "The first trial will be combat prowess. You have 24 hours to prepare." As the crowds of humans and Felixians began to disperse, Jake remained standing in the middle of the room. He had just agreed to fight an alien warrior princess who had never been defeated. "What have I gotten myself into?" he muttered. From across the room, he heard Zara Lynn's laughter, warm and musical. Somehow that made him feel a little better about his chances. Jake spent the night lying awake in his quarters, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow he would fight Princess Zara Lynn, the greatest warrior in the Felixian Empire. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those sharp claws and remembered how easily she had pinned him to the ground. At 6 in the morning, someone knocked on his door. Jake opened it to find Sergeant Amy Rodriguez, the toughest Marine on their ship. She was carrying a bag of training equipment. "Get dressed, Doc," she said. "Captain's orders. I'm going to teach you how not to die." For the next 8 hours, Amy put Jake through the most intense training of his life. She taught him how to dodge, how to roll, and how to use his smaller size as an advantage. "Listen to me," Amy said as Jake tried to catch his breath. "You can't beat her with strength. She's probably 3 times stronger than you. But humans have something special." "What's that?" Jake gasped. "We're unpredictable," Amy grinned. "Aliens think in patterns. They follow rules. But humans? We break rules. We think outside the box. That's your only chance." Ben Parker, the ship's tactical officer, joined them for the afternoon session. He was an expert in alien combat styles. "I've been studying Felixian fighting techniques," Ben said, showing Jake some video recordings. "They're very formal, very traditional. They expect their opponents to fight with honor and follow certain patterns. Jake watched the videos of Phylixian warriors fighting. They moved like deadly dancers, all grace and power. It was beautiful and terrifying. "So what do I do?" Jake asked. "Don't fight like a Phylixian," Ben replied. "Fight like a human. Use tools. Use the environment. Use your brain instead of your muscles." That evening, Jake sat in the mess hall picking at his dinner. His whole body hurt from training, and he still felt hopeless about his chances. "Mind if I sit?" asked a familiar voice. Jake looked up to see Princess Zara Lynn standing beside his table. She was wearing simple clothes instead of her armor, but she was still imposing. Several nearby diners suddenly found reasons to leave. "Sure," Jake said, gesturing to the empty chair. Zara Lynn sat down gracefully. "You look worried." "Wouldn't you be?" Jake asked. "I'm about to fight someone who's never lost a battle." "True," she agreed, "but you might surprise yourself, and me." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Jake noticed that Zara Lynn kept looking around the mess hall with curiosity. "What's it like?" she asked suddenly. "What's what like?" "Being part of a crew like this. Eating together, working together. On Phylixian ships, there is much more hierarchy. Warriors eat with warriors, officers eat with officers." Jake looked around the mess hall. Humans from all departments were sitting together, talking and laughing. "I guess we're more casual about rank when we're off duty. We're all just people trying to do our jobs." "Just people," Zara Lynn repeated thoughtfully. "That is an interesting way to think about it." "What about you?" Jake asked. "What's it like? Being a princess and a warrior?" Zara Lynn's ears drooped slightly. "Lonely," she said quietly. "Everyone either fears me or wants something from me. No one just talks to me like you are doing now." Jake felt a sudden sympathy for this powerful alien woman. "Is that why you were hiding in your small form? To see what it was like to be treated normally?" "Perhaps," she admitted. "I have been curious about humans for a long time. Your species fascinates me." "Why?" "Because you are weak by our standards, but you have spread across the galaxy. You have no claws or natural weapons, but you have defeated species much stronger than you. How do you do it?" Jake thought about it. "We work together. We adapt. We find solutions that no one else thinks of." Zara Lynn nodded slowly. "That is what I hope to see tomorrow. Show me how humans solve impossible problems." She stood to leave, then paused. "Jake Miller, I want you to know something. Regardless of what happens tomorrow, you have already shown more courage than most warriors I know." "How do you figure that?" "You accepted an impossible challenge to protect the peace between our peoples. That is true bravery." After she left, Jake felt a little better about tomorrow. Not confident, but better. The next morning, Jake stood in the combat arena wearing borrowed armor. The arena was a large holographic chamber that could create any environment. Today it was set to look like a rocky canyon with multiple levels and hiding spots. The viewing areas were packed with humans and Phylixians. Everyone wanted to see if a human could survive against their greatest warrior. Princess Zara Lynn entered wearing her full battle armor. She looked magnificent and deadly. She carried a traditional Phylixian energy blade that hummed with power. Lord Commander Thainkar announced the rules. The trial ends when one combatant yields, is unable to continue, or when the victory condition is achieved. "What's the victory condition?" Jake asked. "You must touch the crystal on my armor," Zara Lynn said, pointing to a small blue stone on her chest plate. "For 10 seconds. Jake looked at the crystal. It was right over her heart, protected by armor and her weapon. This seemed impossible. You may use any equipment available in the arena, Thankar continued. Combat begins in 60 seconds. Jake quickly scanned the arena. There were loose rocks, some metal pipes, and various obstacles. His mind started working like a scientist, analyzing the environment. Begin, Thankar announced. Zara Lynn immediately charged at Jake with her energy blade raised. He dove behind a large rock just as the blade cut through the air where his head had been. You cannot hide forever, little human, Zara Lynn called out. She was right. Jake needed a plan. He grabbed a handful of small rocks and waited for her to come around his hiding spot. When Zara Lynn appeared, Jake threw the rocks at her face. Not to hurt her, but to distract her. While she was blocking the rocks, Jake rolled between her legs and came up behind her. He reached for the crystal, but Zara Lynn spun around and grabbed his wrist. Clever, she said, but not clever enough. She threw him across the arena. Jake hit the wall hard and slid to the ground. Everything hurt, but he forced himself to get up. Zara Lynn stalked toward him like a predator. You fight like no opponent I have faced. But you are still too weak. Jake looked around desperately. There was a metal pipe nearby. He grabbed it and used it to block Zara Lynn's next attack. The energy blade cut through the pipe like butter, but it bought him a few seconds. He ran to a higher level of the arena. Zara Lynn followed, leaping up with inhuman grace. Running will not save you, she said. I'm not running, Jake replied. I'm thinking. He had noticed something during their fight. Every time Zara Lynn attacked, she followed traditional Felixian combat forms. Her moves were beautiful and deadly, but they followed patterns. Jake started moving erratically. He stumbled, rolled, and changed direction randomly. Zara Lynn tried to predict his movements, but there was no pattern to predict. What are you doing? She asked, sounding frustrated for the first time. Fighting like a human, Jake said. He grabbed some dirt from the arena floor and threw it in her eyes. While she was clearing her vision, he swung from a metal beam and dropped. Down behind her again. This time, when he reached for the crystal, Zara Lynn was ready. She spun around and pinned him against the wall with one hand around his throat. You are resourceful, she said. But this ends now. Jake looked into her golden eyes and saw something he didn't expect. She was having fun. Despite her serious words, Princess Zara Lynn was enjoying this fight. That gave him an idea. Before you finish me, Jake said, can I ask you something? What? She said suspiciously. Back when you were in your small form, what was your favorite part about being petted? Zara Lynn blinked in confusion. What does that have to do with combat? Just curious, Jake said innocently. And then, while she was distracted by the strange question, Jake reached up and gently scratched behind her ears. Zara Lynn's eyes went wide. She made a small purring sound before she could stop herself. For just a moment, her grip on his throat loosened. That moment was all Jake needed. He slipped out of her grasp and pressed his hand against the crystal on her chest armor. 1, 2, 3. He started counting. Zara Lynn shook her head and grabbed his wrist, but she didn't pull his hand away. 4, 5, 6. She could have easily removed his hand or knocked him unconscious. Instead, she just held his wrist and stared at him with an expression of complete surprise. 7, 8, 9, 10. The arena's computer announced, Victory condition achieved, trial complete. The viewing area erupted in cheers and roars. Jake had won the first trial. Zara Lynn stepped back, still looking shocked. You used my own instincts against me. I used kindness, Jake corrected. The same kindness that started this whole mess. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Zara Lynn threw back her head and laughed. Incredible, she said. In 1,000 years of Phylixian combat, history, no one has ever won a trial by petting their opponent. Lord Commander Thainkar looked both amazed and amused. The first trial goes to Jake Miller. The second trial will begin tomorrow. As they left the arena, Zara Lynn walked beside Jake. That was the most unusual fight of my life, she said. Good unusual or bad unusual? Jake asked. Very good unusual, she replied with a smile. But do not think the next trial will be so easy. Intellectual merit cannot be won with scratching ears. Jake grinned. We'll see about that. But inside, he was already worrying about the second trial. He had gotten lucky today. Could he get lucky twice? The second trial began the next morning in a quiet conference room. Jake sat across from Princess Zara Lynn at a table with a complex puzzle between them. It looked like a three-dimensional maze made of light and crystal. The puzzle of proving, Zara Lynn explained. It tests strategic thinking, pattern recognition, and wisdom. Most Phylixians take 3 days to solve it. The record is 18 hours. Jake studied the glowing puzzle. It had hundreds of interconnected pieces that moved when touched. What happens if I can't solve it? Then you fail the trial, she said simply, and become my property. Lord Commander Thainkar watched from the corner of the room. You may begin when ready. Jake reached out and touched one of the light pieces. It moved, and several other pieces shifted in response. He could see that each move affected the whole puzzle in complex ways. For the first hour, Jake tried to understand the pattern. He moved pieces carefully, taking notes on how they affected each other. Zara Lynn watched him work with interest. You are very methodical, she observed. It's how scientists think, Jake replied, studying his notes. We observe, form theories, and test them. After 3 hours, Jake felt frustrated. He understood parts of the puzzle, but the solution seemed impossible. The Phylixian logic was too different from human thinking. That's when Dana Kim, the communications officer from his ship, knocked on the door. Sorry to interrupt, she said. Captain Hayes wanted me to bring you some food. As Dana set down a tray of sandwiches, she glanced at the puzzle. That's beautiful. What is it? Jake explained the trial while eating. Dana listened carefully, then asked, Can I take a look? Zara Lynn seemed amused. Humans wish to work together on the trial. If that's allowed, Jake said hopefully. It is not forbidden, Lord Commander Thainkar said after thinking for a moment. The trial tests the individual, but it does not prohibit assistance. Dana studied the puzzle for a few minutes. Jake, this reminds me of the quantum relay systems we use for faster-than-light communication. The pieces don't just move in sequence, they move in harmony. Chris Sullivan, the engineer, arrived an hour later with more food and stayed to help. Soon, 3 human minds were working on the Phylixian puzzle. Look at this pattern, Chris pointed, out. Each section resonates with the others. It's like tuning a musical instrument. Jake suddenly understood. We've been thinking about this wrong. It's not a logic puzzle. It's an art form. Phylixians don't just solve it. They create something. Beautiful! Instead of trying to force pieces into place, Jake began moving them like he was conducting music. The puzzle responded differently, flowing and shifting in graceful patterns. Zara Lynn leaned forward with interest. How did you know to do that? Because that's how you move, Jake said, still working on the puzzle. When you fight, when you walk, when you talk, everything you do has rhythm and beauty. Your whole culture values grace. Within another hour, Jake had solved the puzzle. The crystal pieces formed a stunning sculpture of light that looked like a blooming flower. Remarkable, Lord Commander Thanakar said. You completed it in 4 hours by understanding our culture, not just our logic. Zara Lynn stared at the beautiful light sculpture. No one has ever solved it that way before. You made it, better than it was designed to be. That's what humans do, Dana said proudly. We take things and improve them by seeing them differently. Zara Lynn looked thoughtful. Your species works together in ways mine does not. We value individual strength, but you create collective intelligence. Both approaches have value, Jake said. Maybe that's why our species should be allies. That evening, Jake found Zara Lynn in the observation deck looking out at the stars. She had changed out of her armor into simple clothes, and she looked more relaxed than he had ever seen her. Tomorrow is the final trial, she said without turning around. Emotional bonding, Jake said, joining her at the window. What does that involve? We will be connected by our psychic technology. Our minds and emotions will be linked. We will share our deepest fears, our greatest hopes, our most secret thoughts. She paused. Many suitors have broken under the intensity of a Phylixian emotional bond. Jake felt nervous, but also curious. What will you see when you look into my mind? Everything, Zara Lynn said softly. And you will see everything in mine. No secrets, no pretense, just truth. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Then Jake asked, Are you nervous about it? Zara Lynn's ears twitched in surprise. Nervous? I am a warrior. I do not get nervous. Everyone gets nervous sometimes, Jake said gently. Even warriors. After a long pause, Zara Lynn spoke quietly. Yes, I am nervous. I have never allowed anyone to see so deeply into my mind. What if you do not like what you find there? Jake turned to look at her. What if you don't like what you find in mine? I'm not a hero or a warrior. I'm just a scientist who likes helping injured animals. That is exactly why I am nervous, Zara Lynn admitted. You have shown me kindness and respect without wanting anything in return. You have treated me as a person, not as a prize to be won. What if sharing my mind drives you away? Before Jake could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors. All personnel to emergency stations, came the announcement. We are under attack. Through the observation window, Jake could see strange ships appearing out of hyperspace. They were dark and angular, unlike any human or Phylixian vessel. Zerathi pirates, Zara Lynn growled, her peaceful mood instantly replaced by alertness. They must have followed our diplomatic convoy. The station shook as energy weapons struck the outer hull. Jake grabbed the wall for support while Zara Lynn ran toward the door. I must get to my father and our ship, she said. Wait, Jake called, after her. Let me help. Zara Lynn paused. This is not your fight, Jake Miller. You are a scientist, not a warrior. Maybe not, Jake said. But I know this station better than you do, and right now we need to work together. Another explosion rocked the station. Emergency crews ran through the corridors, and Jake could hear Captain Hayes giving orders over the communication system. Zara Lynn looked at Jake for a moment, then nodded. Very well, We fight together." They ran through the station toward the command center. Along the way, they encountered a group of Zrathi raiders who had boarded through a damaged docking port. The Zrathi were reptilian aliens with gray scales and glowing red eyes. Zara Lynn immediately attacked the raiders with her energy blade. She moved like a deadly dancer, cutting through their defenses. But there were too many of them. Jake saw a group of Phylixian cubs hiding behind some cargo containers. They must have been part of the diplomatic families. The Zrathi were moving toward them. Without thinking, Jake ran toward the cubs. "This way!" he shouted, leading them toward a maintenance tunnel he knew about. One of the Zrathi soldiers raised his weapon at the fleeing cubs. Jake threw himself between them and the alien raider. The energy blast hit him in the shoulder, spinning him around and knocking him to the ground. "Jake!" Zara Lynn roared. She abandoned her own fight and pounced on the raider who had shot Jake. Her claws and blade made quick work of him. The other Zrathi retreated when they saw their comrade fall. Zara Lynn knelt beside Jake, who was holding his wounded shoulder. "Why did you do that? Those were not your cubs to protect." "They were children." "In danger," Jake said through gritted teeth. "That's enough reason." Zara Lynn stared at him with an expression he couldn't read. Then she very gently helped him to his feet. "The cubs are safe," she said softly. "You saved them." "We saved them," Jake corrected. "You're the one who actually fought off the raiders." They made their way to the command center, where Captain Hayes and Lord Commander Thainkar were coordinating the defense. The Zrathi attack was being repelled, but several areas of the station were damaged. "Medical teams to Section 7, came the announcement. "We have wounded civilians." Jake tried to stand up to help, but his injured shoulder made him stumble. Zara Lynn caught him before he could fall. "You need medical attention," she said firmly. "Others are hurt worse than me," Jake protested. "Let me be the judge of that," Zara Lynn said. She carefully examined his wound with gentle hands. "The energy blast cauterized the wound so you are not bleeding badly, but you need treatment." As she worked, Jake noticed something different in her touch. Her claws were retracted, and her hands were incredibly gentle. She was taking care of him the way he had taken care of her when she was in her small form. "Zara Lynn," he said quietly. "Yes? I'm not afraid of the emotional bonding trial anymore." She paused in her examination of his wound. "Why not?" "Because I've already seen what's in your heart. You're fierce and strong, but you're also kind and protective. You care about others even when you try to hide it." Zara Lynn's golden eyes met his. "And I have seen what is in yours. You are brave in ways that have nothing to do with fighting. You protect those who cannot protect themselves." The station shook again, but this time it was from human and Phylixian ships launching to chase away the remaining raiders. "The trial tomorrow," Zara Lynn said softly. "I do not think it will be about testing each other anymore." "What will it be about?" Jake asked. "Understanding each other," she replied. "And perhaps choosing each other." Jake smiled despite his pain. "I think I'd like that." Zara Lynn helped him to the medical bay. Her arm. Jake woke up in the medical bay with his shoulder wrapped in healing bandages. The attack had been 3 days ago, but he still felt sore. As he sat up, he saw Princess Zara Lynn sleeping in a chair next to his bed. She was curled up in a very cat-like position, and she was purring softly in her sleep. When Jake moved, her eyes opened immediately. Golden eyes that looked relieved to see him awake. "How do you feel?" she asked, stretching like a cat. Better, Jake said. How long have you been here? Since the medical team finished treating you, she replied, not meeting his eyes. I wanted to make sure you were healing properly, Jake smiled. You were worried about me. I was concerned. About my potential mate, Zara Lynn said formally, but her ears were pink with embarrassment. Speaking of that, Jake said, shouldn't we have done the third trial by now? The trial was postponed due to the attack, Zara Lynn explained. But if you are feeling well enough, I'm ready, Jake said. They went to a special chamber deep in the Felixian section of the station. The room was filled with soft light and comfortable cushions. In the center was a device that looked like two connected helmets. Lord Commander Thane-Carr was waiting for them, along with Captain Hayes and several other officials from both species. The emotional bonding trial, Thane-Carr explained, will connect your minds and hearts directly. You will experience each other's deepest thoughts and feelings. Many find this overwhelming. What are we supposed to do? Jake asked. Simply be honest with each other, Zara Lynn said. The connection will do the rest. They put on the helmets, and immediately Jake felt something strange happening in his mind. It was like someone had opened a door that he didn't know existed. Suddenly, he could feel Zara Lynn's emotions as if they were his own. Her nervousness, her curiosity, her strength, and underneath it all, a deep loneliness that made his heart ache. At the same time, he felt her experiencing his emotions. His wonder at meeting alien life, his genuine desire to help others, his fear of not being brave enough, and his growing affection for her. Oh, Zara Lynn whispered, and Jake could feel her surprise. You really do care about me, not because I'm a princess or a warrior, but just me. Yes, Jake said, and through the connection she could feel the truth of it. Jake experienced Zara Lynn's memories, growing up as the only daughter of a military leader, always having to be perfect, always having to be strong, never being allowed to show weakness or uncertainty. The loneliness of being admired but never truly known. Zara Lynn experienced Jake's memories too. His quiet childhood studying animals and plants. His joy in discovering new forms of life. His parents who taught him to be kind to all living things. His contentment with simple pleasures and quiet moments. You are not what I expected, Zara Lynn said through the mental connection. What did you expect? Jake asked. Someone who would try to dominate me or change me. Someone who would want me for my power or status. She paused. Instead, I find someone who likes me exactly as I am. You're amazing as you are, Jake said, and she could feel his sincerity. Strong and fierce, but also gentle and caring. You don't need to change for anyone. Through their connection, Jake felt Zara Lynn's fear. What if I am too different? What if I am too alien for you to truly love? What if I'm too ordinary for someone as extraordinary as you? Jake replied. They both felt each other's laughter through the mental link. We are both afraid of the same thing, Zara Lynn realized. That we are not worthy of each other's affection. But we are, Jake said with certainty. I can feel it. Can't you? Through the emotional bond, Zara Lynn felt Jake's deep acceptance of who she was. All of her strength, all of her flaws, all of her complexity. He didn't want to change her or control her. He simply wanted to be with her. And Jake felt Zara Lynn's amazement at finding someone who could match her intelligence and complement her strength without trying to compete with her. someone who made her feel safe enough to be vulnerable. The bonding is complete, Lord Commander Thanakar announced. The trial has been passed by both participants. But Jake and Zara Lynn barely heard him. They were looking into each other's eyes with new understanding. I choose you, Zara Lynn said, softly. Not because of trials or traditions, but because my heart chooses you. I choose you too, Jake replied. For who you are, not what you are. Lord Commander Thanakar cleared his throat. There is something else we must discuss. The trials were not only to test your compatibility. Everyone turned to look at him. The Phylixian Empire faces a crisis, he continued. Our homeworld is dying. The star that gives it life is becoming unstable. We have perhaps 50 years before our planet becomes uninhabitable. Captain Hayes leaned forward. Why didn't you tell us this before? Pride, Thanakar admitted. We are a warrior people. We do not easily ask for help. But watching your species work together during the trials and the attack has shown us something important. What's that? Jake asked. That strength comes in many forms. Phylixians are strong individually, but humans are strong collectively. You solve problems by combining different types of knowledge and working together. Zara Lynn stood up and walked to her father. You arranged these trials partially to see if our species could cooperate. Yes, Thanakar said, and Jake Miller has proven that humans can not only work with us, but can think in ways that complement our abilities. Jake felt overwhelmed. You want humans to help save your homeworld? We want to propose something larger, Thanakar said. A joint colonization project. Phylixians and humans working together to find and settle new worlds. Your species' innovation combined with our strength and experience. Captain Hayes looked intrigued. That's a big undertaking. The biggest in both our histories, Thanakar agreed. But if it works, both our peoples will be stronger for it. Zara Lynn took Jake's hand. What do you think, my chosen mate? Jake thought about it. A chance to study alien life on dozens of new worlds. A chance to build something unprecedented. Between two species. A chance to spend his life with an incredible woman who challenged and inspired him. I think, Jake said slowly, that this is going to be the greatest adventure in human history. 1 month later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the joint ship New Harmony, watching a beautiful blue-green planet grow larger through the viewport. It would be the first world colonized by both humans and Phylixians together. Zara Lynn wrapped her arms around him from behind, her chin resting on his shoulder. She was wearing casual clothes instead of armor, and she looked relaxed and happy. Are you nervous about our new home? She asked. A little, Jake admitted. But excited, too. Think of all the new life forms we might discover. Think of all the new problems we will have to solve together, Zara Lynn added with amusement. Jake reached up and absently scratched behind her ears while reviewing the colonization plans on his tablet. Zara Lynn immediately started purring. You still do that better than anyone, she murmured contentedly. My silly human. Good thing I have a lifetime to practice, Jake replied, leaning back against her warmth. Through the viewport, their new world awaited. It would have challenges and surprises, just like their relationship. But they would face them together, combining human creativity with Phylixian strength, human cooperation with Phylixian courage. Behind them, the ship bustled with activity as humans and Phylixians worked side by side, preparing for their new life. Engineers shared ideas, scientists compared notes, and children from both species played together in the common areas. Jake, Zara Lynn said thoughtfully. Yes? Do you ever regret scratching that scared little cat behind the equipment? Jake smiled and turned in her arms to face her. Never. It was the best mistake I ever made. It was not a mistake, Zara Lynn said, touching her forehead to his. It was destiny. You really believe that? I believe that the universe brought us together for a reason. To show both our peoples that different does not mean incompatible, that strength comes in many forms, that love can bridge any gap, Jake kissed her gently. Even the gap between a human scientist and an alien warrior princess. Especially that gap, Zara Lynn purred against his lips. As their ship approached the new world, Jake marveled at how his life had changed. A few months ago, he had been a quiet scientist studying alien life forms in a laboratory. Now he was a pioneer, an ambassador, and the mate of the most remarkable woman in the galaxy, all because he had scratched a cat behind the ears. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness led to the greatest adventures. And sometimes, when you weren't looking for love, it found you anyway. The end.